Guys, how is everybody doing? Continuing on my review series of the MonsterVerse series, leading up to the brand new Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire in theaters this weekend. Here are my thoughts on Kong Skull Island, which is the next film in the MonsterVerse following the 2014 Godzilla film. Let's set the stage with this movie and my relationship with it. Back when this movie was coming out, it was probably my most anticipated movie of all time. You could throw a naked, bare ass lady in front of me, and I would not care. All I would be thinking about is Long Skull Island. You can ask my mother, who brought me to this movie to watch this. You can ask her. I bought every toy there was I could find. I bought the Kong of this movie. I bought the skull crawlers. I bought the spider. I bought every single toy for this movie. That is how excited I was. And I don't know where those toys are today. Wish I knew where those were. Nostalgia. But leading up to this movie, I was so excited. When the movie finally came out, I was finally to see it on the big screen. I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite movies of all time. It was probably my favorite movie of all time at one point because I loved it so much, how much hype there was for it for me at the time. I was so excited for this movie. I was wanted to go to the theater so many times to rewatch it. I absolutely was over the roof excited for this movie back when this movie first came out. And for a while, this was my favorite MonsterVerse movie. Is it, though? Is it still my favorite? Well, let's see. Starting off with my positives on Kong Skull Island is that I do really like the soundtrack of this movie. Now, where this movie is set in the 70s, which I don't think it does a good job there, but I do think it does a good job music-wise because you got like a lot of good 70s songs where they're all sounding they all sound the same to me, like same tone-wise. Like you got Running Through the Jungle, like that song. That's one of my favorite songs of all time. I love that song. Like one of my favorite 70s songs, anyways. And then you got songs a lot like that. The soundtrack really fits the tone to where it's kind of like a Vietnam-like movie, to where this movie is set between Vietnam, I believe, or the Cold War. I think it was both, anyways. And to where the soundtrack was like very Vietnam-wise in a way, to where it was like music that you would hear in like a war movie, which they do a good job here. I love listening to it, and if they did sell like a soundtrack of this movie, I would probably buy it or download it illegally off the internet. That I noticed when I was rewatching this movie is just how great the cinematography in this movie and visually wise. Visuals and cinematography wise, it's great. And if I'm not mistaken, the director of this movie has not made a movie since this movie came out, but I don't know why. I'm pretty sure I'm correct there, but if he has made more movies, I want to check out more of his movies because the way the cinematography and the visuals are in this movie are just some of the best, and probably the best out of the whole MonsterVerse, but I can't really give you for sure because I haven't seen this franchise in a long time. But like certain shots, like when you see Kong like stand up and you just see the sun and the helicopter slowly fly towards them when everybody sees Kong for the first time, like that shot was incredible. Like the huge explosion around Kong, like for the first time when Sam Jackson and Kong stare at each other for the first time, like that's a great shot. So many shots in this movie are just so great, and visually wise, it's like that movie's beautiful. Like if this director has not made a movie since this movie, he needs to make more movies because the cinematography and visuals in this movie are great. And I'm hoping other movies that he's made are just like it because the cinematography in this movie is amazing. I don't know, I barely even talk about it, but if I'm talking about cinematography in your movie, that's saying a lot because I barely talk about that. And it's just great. Like every certain shot in this movie, it's like its own character kind of, and it just makes it look so badass and cool and color scheme and visualize. It's just beautiful. This is an issue I have with the 2014 Godzilla movie, and I'm glad that they waste no time in this movie to where they show us Kong. Now, it probably was like maybe a half hour in until we fully saw him, but I could be mistaken on time-wise. But the scene to where we finally see Kong and it's like right out of the gutter, wasting no time. It's like it's awesome. Like where he's taking out every helicopter in sight. Excuse me, and he's like that whole action scene where he's taking every helicopter out in sight. He's just destroying things, killing people, big explosions. Like this movie wastes no time to introduce Kong. Fox leader to Fox group, fire and this movie, and you could tell that the people made this like, okay, people are here for Kong. So we're gonna give it to him. Although he kind of disappears here and there and randomly shows up. But the scene where when we see Kong and the way that we see him so early in the movie is just beautiful. Like that whole scene where he's taking out the helicopters, it's amazing. I love that scene. It's one of the best introductions to a character I've ever seen in my life. I think it's great. I think he's great in this movie. Like, I just love when we first see him in the movie, waste no time showing him because it's something I have an issue with the Godzilla movie to where we don't get to see Godzilla in that movie until an hour into the movie. But in this, it's just like, fuck that. Here's Kong right away. But again, he disappears here and there every once in a while to where we don't really get to see him much. But at the same time, this movie just wastes no time showing him, and it was just great. I love that whole scene itself, and the way that we just instantly get to see Kong. It was great. I also really like the cast of this movie. You got Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, Sam Jackson, John Goodman, I believe the guy's name is. Huh. Something I never thought I'd see. Loki, Captain Marvel, and Nick Fury all together facing against Kong. That would be an interesting Marvel movie. Huh. And of course, you got Sam Jackson in this movie because the man will not rest until he has to be in every single movie possible. We get it. You're a good actor. Stop chewing the scenery. Give someone else a chance, asshole. But Sam Jackson, it's no surprise. He's great as he always is. He never disappoints. When he's cast in a movie, you know he's going to be good, and it's no surprise. Tom Hiddleston, I don't know how I feel about him in this certain role, but he does do good as this like kind of big action hero guy to where he's like the face of the all the entire cast and he's like the big hero, kind of big strong hero of the movie. I don't know if that role really fits him. Why is there's always something in my eye as I film a fucking video? Like he's like the big strong leader guy. I don't know if that really fits him. I don't really think that like really makes his performance. I don't really think if he was the best guy to cast, but it's Tom Hiddleston. I'm not going to complain. He's a great actor, but he should be glad that he didn't tell Kong that he was a god.
God, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
Fucking dumbass. And Brie Larson, she doesn't really have much to do. She's just the photographer of this movie, but she doesn't really do much in this movie. But I like her as an actress. I don't think she deserves any of the hate that she gets for Captain Marvel. I think that's absolutely ridiculous that she even gets hate for her role. But there's also supposed to be like some sort of like chemistry there, like romantic stuff going on with Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson in this movie, but I just don't see it because all I can see is Loki and Captain Marvel, and that'd be a really weird relationship. But chemistry wise, those two don't really have anything. And John Goodman, if I'm not mistaken, I have not seen him in many movies recently. He might have been in a lot of movies recently, but I don't know, but this was the last movie that I watched that had John Goodman in it. And he's a great actor. He's always great. He plays like this weird character that's like kind of crazy, believes in monsters. No one believes him, thinks he's crazy, as anyone would think. But then he makes people believe that there are monsters after they see Kong and all the skull crawlers and all that. And he's like the guy that was meant to look crazy, but then they all look crazy for not believing him. John Goodman, his character is fine but he's a good casting. Yeah, either ways, the cast in this entire movie is great. They're all standout actors. They're all A-list actors that I don't think all fit their part, but they're all great. I really like the designs of like all the monsters and creatures of this movie. Like, of course, you got Kong, who has a great design at like Godzilla in this universe. I think his design is really cool. How I like how they took inspiration from like the original '30s King Kong and also like a new design where they kind of took a new design and old design of Kong, kind of put them together, and this was what they got. It's a great design. He's a badass looking Kong. I like him, and I also like the skull crawlers of this movie. They're really cool looking to where they're kind of like a lizard and like a snake kind of thing where they have like a tail like a lizard. They move fast like a snake, and I really like their face part where it's like a legit skull, like as in crawlers. They're just really cool looking. I really like their design. And you also got like small designs here, like this weird buffalo type thing that shows up here and there in the movie. I think his that design is really cool. There's also like a log grasshopper thing that was like really cool, which I was surprising how cool it was. Design wise, This movie looks great because like even like landscape wise, oh god, I just kicked my chair and ow, that kind of hurt. And like just landscape wise, you see all these creatures, all these things on this island, and they all look cool. They all have like really cool designs. I don't really think there's like one design in this movie where I thought they looked dumb. Like especially when you go to Skull Island, and if you've seen the other King Kong movies, you know there's like really weird things on this, but this movie kind of takes its own spin on the weird things and kind of like expands on it. And for it being Skull Island, they did great designs and they did like really cool weird looking designs. Like if you're going to go to Skull Island, you should have like weird designs. One of my favorite designs in this movie that doesn't really show up much in the movie, which is kind of disappointing because it's a cool design, is like the spider thing where they're like their its legs look like taboon trees and like they're walking around. Like that's like a really cool looking spider in this movie, but unfortunately they take it out early in this movie because I would have liked to see more of that, but of that design because of how cool it was, but it got killed out. It got killed out pretty quickly, but yeah. Either way, so the designs in this movie are great. They're cool looking, they're weird looking, and they match Skull Island as it should in this whole like King Kong universe because it's Skull Island. But yeah, designs wise, they're all great. They're all weird looking. They match the whole island. Final positive is I really like the action of this movie, which it's great, and you got like a and this movie like if you're going to Skull Island to face off Kong, you better have good action because you're gonna be fighting a giant fucking monkey. Like I already talked about this a little bit, like when they first see Kong and they're trying to take him out with all the helicopters, and he's taking them out left and right, killing people left and right. That whole scene, probably the best scene in the movie. It's a great scene. And then scenes where they're like fighting off skull crawlers, fighting off different creatures and stuff like that. The final battle, kinda. Talk more about that in a little bit, I think. Will I? Maybe. I don't know. We'll get there. But yeah, the action wise, it's great. Like the Godzilla movie, the action in this movie is great, and it's just fun. It's fun action, like it should. Why do I look tired? I'm not even that tired. Moving on to my mixed aspects, and that's got to be the comedy. Now there are some moments here and there that the comedy is good, but to where sometimes it just felt out of place. And surprisingly, it didn't come from John C. Riley, and I forgot to talk about him. John C. Riley, he's in this movie too. I like John C. Riley. He's funny. But I'm glad that they don't make him the comic relief because he's a comedy actor. But surprisingly, all the comedy didn't come from him. It mostly came from like other actors, like Brie Larson and Tom Hiddleston. Surprisingly, some comedy here and there did work. It did get me the chuckle. But at other points, it's just like that's stupid. Like the part where John C. Riley's talking about like giant ants, like that scene was funny where he dropped the F bomb, which I thought was a pretty funny scene. Yeah, but other than that, none of the comedy really worked for me except for like a few scenes here and there. It wasn't horrible. They didn't use it a whole bunch. It's just like it just fell out of places in certain scenes. It was just moving on to my negatives, and it's the underdeveloped characters. Every single one of these characters we do not get to know whatsoever. All we know about Tom Hiddleston's character is that he's a British tracker and like a former like US like a former like soldier or some shit like that. Brie Larson is a photographer, and John Goodman's character is a crazy old person that makes people wants people to believe in monsters, and he encountered monsters while in Vietnam. And the only character that's really developed at all in this movie is John C. Riley. Like we get to see him as a young version of him in the beginning of the movie when he first got to Skull Island during World War II, and you find out more about him and how he wants to get home, how much he missed that while he was on that island since the 1940s. But like, yeah, John C. Riley is the only character in this movie that is actually developed. Every other character is just like, oh, he's a tracker, she's a photographer, he's a crazy old man that wants people to believe in monsters. That's it. No redemption arcs, no nothing. That is the only character development that we get in this movie, and unfortunately, John C. Riley is the only one that has any character development, and he's introduced very late in the movie. All in all, guys, Kong Skull Island, it's a fun time. It's a good follow-up to Godzilla. It's another good installment in the MonsterVerse series. Now, again, it won't be for everybody, but I do think this is a lot of fun. I do prefer it over Godzilla just slightly. I do think they're both pretty good. And it's a fun time. I won't recommend it to everybody, but if you enjoyed Godzilla 2014, I think you will enjoy this. But if you're also just a big King Kong fan, I think you will enjoy this. This movie was a lot of fun. The action was great. Kong himself is a badass in this movie. So if you're a King Kong fan, definitely check this movie out. And if you enjoyed Godzilla and you want to see more of this MonsterVerse, definitely check out Kong Skull Island. It's a fun time and it's action packed. What do you guys think about Kong Skull Island? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Is this your favorite MonsterVerse movie? Is this your least favorite? Do you prefer Godzilla over it? Let me know in the comments below and we will talk about it. And if you like this video, like it. If you loved it, subscribe with the bell notifications so you will get notified for all of my latest videos. And of course, until my next video, I'll see you all next time.